006, 18 hours, Davis Strait, west of Greenland, air temperature -4 degrees Celsius, wind from the northwest at 22 knots, sea state 5 with ice concentration at 30% in scattered floes. Visibility reduced to 4 nautical miles due to snow squalls moving southeast across Baffin Bay. Surface radar propagation degraded by precipitation and thermal inversion, layers common to Arctic maritime environments. At that hour, multiple U.S. Navy sensor platforms detected a subsurface contact transiting southward through the Denmark Strait, the critical maritime corridor separating Greenland from Iceland. The contact exhibited acoustic characteristics consistent with a Russian Yasen-class, nuclear-powered attack submarine. One of Moscow's most advanced undersea platforms capable of extended Arctic operations and equipped with long-range cruise missiles. Facts first. The submarine did not enter sovereign territorial waters. It did not activate targeting systems detectable by coalition sensors. It did not surface in contested areas or violate established maritime protocols. However, its presence in the Denmark Strait, a chokepoint critical to NATO's Atlantic defense architecture, represented a strategic positioning event requiring immediate assessment and response. Threat assessment came second. Russian submarine operations in the GIUK Gap, the Greenland-Iceland United Kingdom corridor, have historically functioned as strategic signaling. Demonstrating capability to contest sea control in waters NATO considers essential to reinforcement operations between North America and Europe. U.S. operational commanders classified the transit as a deliberate probe of Allied undersea surveillance networks and response coordination. No general quarters were sounded aboard nearby surface vessels. No active sonar prosecutions were initiated immediately. For approximately 40 minutes, the situation remained a tracking problem managed through passive acoustic sensors and coordination with Allied maritime patrol aircraft. That changed at 06, 58 hours when the submarine altered course toward waters adjacent to U.S. installations in northwestern Greenland, creating engagement geometry that required either active tracking, revealing NATO sensor capabilities, or acceptance of incomplete situational awareness in a region where strategic infrastructure exists. What followed was not confrontation. It was the controlled execution of multi-domain tracking doctrine designed to maintain contact without forcing escalation while demonstrating comprehensive domain awareness. The encounter did not end in clash. It ended in calibrated disclosure, where both sides acknowledged mutual detection without crossing thresholds that would mandate kinetic response, 96 hours earlier. In the days preceding the submarine transit, intelligence reporting indicated increased Russian Northern Fleet activity, consistent with what NATO intelligence categorizes as strategic deterrence operations, deployments designed to signal capability and contest Allied assumptions about freedom of maneuver in high-latitude waters. Russian naval aviation conducted long-range patrol flights over the Norwegian Sea. Surface combatants departed Severomorsk on headings suggesting Arctic transit routes. Communications intercepts indicated coordination between submarine forces and shore-based command structures responsible for strategic oversight. From Moscow's perspective, the operational objective appeared threefold: demonstrate persistent presence in the GIUK Gap, test NATO undersea surveillance integration following recent alliance command structure reorganizations, and signal that Arctic approaches to the Atlantic remain contested despite Western assumptions of regional transparency. The Yasen-class submarine represents significant Russian investment in advanced undersea capability. Equipped with low-frequency sonar systems, pump jet propulsion for reduced acoustic signature, and vertical launch tubes capable of deploying caliber cruise missiles at ranges exceeding 1,500 kilometers. The platform is designed for both sea control and strategic strike missions in contested environments. U.S. Command authority operating in the region included maritime patrol aircraft based at Naval Air Station Keflavik in Iceland, submarine forces operating under classified patrol assignments, and coordination with Danish defense assets responsible for Greenland's maritime domain awareness. The network operated through NATO's integrated undersea surveillance architecture, a system of fixed hydrophone arrays, mobile sonar platforms, and signal processing centers that provide layered acoustic coverage across critical choke points. Russian planners believed stealth and operational discipline would allow transit through the Denmark Strait without detailed tracking. NATO commanders operated under doctrine assuming Russian submarines would eventually be detected, but requiring verification through multi-source correlation before initiating active prosecution. Both sides understood the strategic environment. The Davis Strait and Denmark Strait represent maritime geography where detection probability increases, but confirmation requires revealing sensor capabilities. In such environments, doctrine balances the intelligence value of maintaining contact against the operational cost of exposing collection methods. Both assumptions would be tested when the submarine's acoustic signature appeared on passive sonar arrays monitored by Allied facilities. 05:42 hours. The initial detection came from fixed hydrophone arrays positioned along the Greenland-Iceland Gap, part of the Sound Surveillance System, SOSUS, network maintained since the Cold War and modernized through NATO investment. The acoustic signature was faint but distinct, propulsion harmonics consistent with pump jet technology and hull characteristics matching known Yasen-class dimensions. The contact was classified as probable rather than confirmed. Single-source detection does not meet NATO standards for tracking initiation. Doctrine requires correlation across multiple sensors before committing reconnaissance assets. 05:58 hours, a U.S. Maritime patrol aircraft, a P-8A Poseidon operating from Iceland, repositioned to deploy sonobuoys along the submarine's projected track. The buoys were passive acoustic sensors designed to listen without transmitting, preserving operational security while refining contact location. Correlation occurred within minutes. The submarine's signature appeared on multiple buoys, confirming heading and approximate speed. Track confidence increased from probable to confirmed. Russian submarine commanders likely detected the sonobuoy deployment through onboard electronic surveillance measures. The presence of maritime patrol aircraft overhead is rarely subtle. At that point, the submarine faced tactical choices: continue current course and accept tracking, alter course to complicate prosecution, or increase speed and sacrifice acoustic stealth for maneuver advantage. The submarine maintained course but reduced speed, a decision suggesting confidence in acoustic quieting rather than evasion through maneuver. 06:18 hours. Additional coalition assets entered the operational picture. A Danish naval vessel operating maritime surveillance patrols near Greenland's coast received tracking data through NATO communication networks. A Canadian CP-140 Aurora aircraft launched from Thule Air Base, the U.S. installation in northwestern Greenland, to provide additional sensor coverage. The tactical picture was developing into a multinational tracking operation. No single nation controlled the prosecution. Coordination occurred through established NATO procedures where information sharing was mandatory, but weapons authority remained national. This was not confrontation. It was professional surveillance executed under protocols developed over decades of alliance operation. 06:34 hours. The submarine altered course toward shallower waters west of Greenland. This maneuver created tactical complexity. Shallow water degrades passive sonar effectiveness due to acoustic reverberation and thermal layer disruption. It also reduces the submarine's depth margin for evasive maneuvers if active prosecution becomes necessary. U.S. Command assessed the course change as either an attempt to evade tracking or a deliberate probe of NATO's willingness to maintain contact in acoustically challenging environments. The decision was made to continue tracking, but to avoid active sonar unless the submarine approached within defined proximity of critical infrastructure. 06:42 hours. Ice concentration increased as the submarine moved into waters where seasonal flow coverage complicates both navigation and acoustic tracking. Surface ice reflects and scatters sonar signals, creating false contacts and masking genuine signatures. Maritime patrol aircraft deployed additional sonobuoys in a wider pattern, attempting to bracket the submarine's likely position despite environmental degradation. Track confidence decreased but did not collapse entirely. This was the close call, not because detection failed, but because maintaining contact required accepting reduced certainty. Commanders had to decide whether operational value of continued tracking justified revealing additional sensor capabilities through more aggressive prosecution. 06:58 hours. The submarine's course brought it within 60 nautical miles of Pitofik Space Base, the strategic U.S. installation formerly known as Thule Air Base. The facility hosts early warning radar systems, satellite ground stations, and infrastructure critical to North American aerospace defense. Proximity to Pitofik changed the operational calculus. What had been routine submarine tracking became a potential strategic positioning event. Doctrine required notification to senior command and assessment of whether the submarine's intent was transit or surveillance of critical installations. At that point, the decision was made to transition from passive tracking to active disclosure. The major reveal was not technological capability, it was procedural coordination. At 07:04 hours, a U.S. Maritime patrol aircraft transmitted an active sonar ping directly toward the submarine's estimated position. The ping was not a weapons targeting action. It was a message: your position is known, your course is tracked, and stealth is no longer protecting you. Active sonar in this context serves as communication rather than prosecution. It tells the submarine commander that continued operations will occur under full Allied awareness, removing any operational advantage stealth might provide. The submarine responded within minutes. It altered course to the east, away from Greenland's coast and Pitofik's proximity. Speed increased slightly, not to evade, but to transit out of the sensitive area. Post-event analysis showed that Russian submarine operations had been detected, tracked, and influenced without weapons engagement or diplomatic crisis. The demonstration of tracking capability served as deterrence without escalation. NATO's advantage was not superior technology alone. It was the integration of multiple national assets into a coherent tracking network where information sharing occurred faster than the submarine could exploit gaps in coverage. Russian competence mattered here. The submarine commander recognized that continuing toward Pitofik under active Allied surveillance would eliminate operational value while confirming NATO's detection capabilities. The decision to alter course reflected tactical judgment, not defeat. Restraint operated on both sides. NATO forces demonstrated capability without forcing confrontation. Russian forces acknowledged detection without escalating to aggressive maneuvers that could trigger defensive protocols. The outcome was strategic clarity. The GIUK Gap remains under Allied surveillance, Russian submarines can be tracked even in challenging Arctic conditions. And both sides understand the boundaries of acceptable operations. In the hours following the course change, tracking continued but with reduced intensity. The submarine transited eastward through the Denmark Strait, eventually moving beyond effective tracking range as it entered deeper Atlantic waters where acoustic conditions favored stealth over prosecution. US and Allied command structures initiated standard post-operation review. Sensor performance was assessed. Coordination timelines were evaluated. Intelligence analysts correlated the submarine's track with known Russian operational patterns to determine whether the transit represented routine deployment or specific mission activity. Russian naval communications increased briefly following the active sonar event, suggesting command interest in operational outcome. No public statements were issued by Moscow regarding the transit. Diplomatic channels remained quiet. NATO's response was similarly restrained. No press releases, no public claims of successful tracking. The operation remained classified except for routine reporting through alliance command structures. Strategically, the encounter reinforced existing understanding. Russian submarines operate in the GIUK Gap regularly. NATO can detect and track those operations through coordinated sensor networks. Neither side seeks confrontation, but neither side yields strategic positioning without response. The clash that did not happen was more significant than kinetic engagement would have been. Both sides demonstrated capability, acknowledged mutual awareness, and adjusted behavior without crossing thresholds that would require escalation. This encounter did not produce confrontation. It produced calibrated transparency. Russia risked direct clash not through aggressive action, but through strategic positioning in waters where NATO maintains persistent surveillance. The risk was not military defeat, but operational exposure, revealing submarine capabilities and patterns to Allied intelligence collection. What happened was not failure of Russian submarine operations or NATO overreaction. It was the professional execution of Undersea domain awareness doctrine, where detection leads to influence rather than destruction. What remains unresolved is whether this model of managed transparency can persist as submarine technology advances. Quieter propulsion systems, autonomous underwater vehicles, and under-ice operations could shift detection probabilities in ways that reduce Allied confidence without providing Russia clear operational advantage. The deeper strategic problem is not whether NATO can track Russian submarines in the GIUK Gap today. It is whether deterrence in the undersea domain can remain stable when detection becomes probabilistic rather than certain, and when both sides operate under doctrines that assume awareness while preparing for surprise. In the Arctic approaches to the Atlantic, where ice coverage expands seasonally and acoustic conditions vary unpredictably, the next submarine transit may not be detected as clearly. And uncertainty in undersea warfare does not favor restraint. It favors preemptive action that neither side desires, but both may find unavoidable. The clash did not happen, but the conditions that could produce it remain. Does active sonar disclosure reduce escalation risk in submarine encounters, or does it accelerate operational tempo by eliminating the ambiguity that allows both sides to avoid confrontation? How should NATO undersea surveillance doctrine evolve as detection certainty decreases in Arctic environments? Share your analysis.